I think we can officially get started. Do want to thank everyone for joining today's session. And today's session is an information session on the NJEDA Food Desert Relief Tax Credit Auction. The goal of this program is pretty specific. And if this one isn't the exact right fit for you, we do encourage you to check out a lot of the other NJEDA programs that we have. There's a lot out there. You might be applicable to this one and another one. So make sure you check out our website at njeda.gov, in addition to all the information from today. So officially, to get us started, I'm going to shift things over to the Senior Advisor of Food Desert Relief, Brian Todd. Brian, take it away.
Thank you, Caitlin, and good day to everyone. Welcome to the webinar on the Food Desert Relief Tax Credit Auction. To start with, here's some basic information. Again, these slides will be shared after the presentation, but if you're looking to visit our website for more of the resources, here's the email to send us any questions you might have. A recording of the webinar, as Caitlin mentioned, will be posted early next week, and the slides will also be posted as well after the event. The next slide. The agenda for today is pretty straightforward. Welcome and background. We'll look at an overview of the entire program and bidder eligibility, and then the auction process, getting into the mechanics of that. Then we'll walk through the application page by page, followed by Q&A. But of course, as Caitlin mentioned, if any questions arise please use the Q&A tab so you can submit them and we can address them during the presentation or at the end. Next slide. Welcome and background. I'll be pinch hitting for Tara Colton today for the introduction, but joining me will be Riley Edwards, the team lead for economic security. And also, even before we begin, I'd like to thank everyone from EDA for making this program happen and bringing us to this point. Next slide. A little bit about EDA. The New Jersey Economic Development Authority, of course, serves as the state's principal agency for driving economic growth. We look at ourselves as we're committed to a model for inclusive and sustainable economic development, driving for strong and dynamic New Jersey communities, and looking to implement incentives and initiatives to enhance the economic vitality and quality of life in the state, basically helping to build a fairer and stronger New Jersey economy. Next slide. And today, as part of the auction, it comes out of the Food Desert Relief Act, which was signed by Governor Murphy back in January of 2021 and amended in June of 2022. The basic aspects of the program, we have $240 million for many different areas to help alleviate food insecurity. Major one is facilitating the development of supermarkets, which we will be unveiling more about later this year. Also strengthening existing community assets by giving them the equipment and infrastructure they need to provide healthier food options. Helping food retailers to respond to the shift in e-commerce, particularly for SNAP, formerly known as food stamp customers, and WIC participants, and then identifying and fostering innovative solutions to alleviate food insecurity. All of these paths we are currently working on, and talk about that a little more in this slide. Kind of looking at this, what we'll be looking at, as I mentioned, the tax credits for supermarkets on the left side, but in the center and to the right are the grants and loans, which will be provided to provide for technology, equipment, food security initiatives, and then technical assistance. Of that $240 million, we are able to auction off a portion of those tax credits. So currently we have the ability to auction off up to $50 million for those grant loan programs. So all of these programs will be utilized to help alleviate food insecurity in New Jersey. So it is truly a feel-good program. Next slide. And as part of our initiative in doing this, we had to determine 50 food desert communities in the state of New Jersey under the law. And we went through a very rigorous process in doing this, working with the Department of Community Affairs, the Department of Agriculture, and many other groups to come up with what we believe is the most intensive look at food desert communities. We know that New Jersey does not fall into perhaps the broader USDA definition, but these are the areas we looked at. And without going into detail, we covered things like access to food, whether an area was a food swamp, meaning they had unhealthy food choices, the demographics, basically, minority groups, education levels, economic factors such as the poverty rate, SNAP and WIC household participants, health factors such as obesity, and then community factors such as walkability score and housing costs. And thus we came up with the next two slides are the top 50 food desert communities in New Jersey. As you can see, many of them are the whom anyone would think of being a food desert in New Jersey. Many of the major cities, and in the top 10 indeed, are cities, Newark, Atlantic City, Camden, Trenton. One note is any city with an asterisk is the entire community. For most, it is not the entire area that is considered a food desert. So you'll see there's areas for Newark South, Newark West, Trenton East. So we did break it down into those 50 separate sections. It does cover all counties in the state. And as you can see, they vary greatly in size, and we are looking to help all communities in this program. And now what I will do is I'll turn it over to Riley Edwards, who will walk us through the overview and bidder eligibility.
Thank you, Brian, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Really good to start out with an explanation of what all the funds that we're raising through this auction will go for. But now we'll dig into the details of the auction itself. So we really think of this auction as kind of a one-time fundraiser for those programs that Brian described. And the way it will work is that corporations and insurance companies with either corporation business tax or insurance premiums tax in the state of New Jersey can participate in this auction and bid for tax credits at a discount of up to 15%. The tax credits will first be able to be used in tax year 2023. That's specifically if these are calendar year filers who are purchasing. There is a minimum tax credit request of $500,000 and a minimum price of 85 cents on the dollar, which is where that 15% discount comes in. And then once the purchase transaction is completed, there are no ongoing commitments or compliance requirements. Where the money goes from there is for this team to be able to design and fund these grant loan and technical assistance programs in those food desert communities that Brian described. The eligibility criteria for this auction are pretty straightforward. Covered several of these on the previous slide. Have to be a New Jersey CBT or IPT filer. There's a minimum for the size of the bid and the price of the bid. There is a required deposit of 10% of the tax credit purchase value. However, that deposit is capped at $500,000. So if the bid is 5 million or more, the deposit won't get any higher than 500,000. There's also some standard requirements that go with all EDA programs. Purchasers have to be in good standing with the State Department of Labor and Workforce Development, the Department of Environmental Protection, and the Division of Taxation, which is shown by having a tax clearance certificate. Purchasers also have to undergo the standard EDA legal review, which is a required part of our process. One thing I should mention on the deposit, if a bid is declined or purchasers unable to follow through with the purchase, the deposit will be returned. The auction process. So we are basically here right now at this first step. We have posted on our website today the sample application, which we'll walk through later in this presentation, and a template agreement, which is the purchase contract between the bidder and NJEDA. And we've also opened up for questions at the email address in the slides, which is fdrtcauction@njeda.gov. It's really alphabet soup. And part of the reason for starting this outreach now and putting this information out there is both so that bidders can really be clear on how the process works and all of the requirements, but also so that we can get an accurate sense of the interest from the market and be able to set an appropriate amount that's available in the auction. As Brian mentioned, the board has approved up to 50 million this year, but delegated authority to our CEO to set a lower amount based on market conditions. So that amount will be announced in advance of the application itself opening. Also, any answers to the questions that come in this period will be posted with some time before the application opens. When the application opens, that's another chance for us to announce a higher amount available if through this sort of outreach and Q&A period, we find that the demand necessitates having a higher amount available. That change would happen at that point. After the application period closes, the bids and the accompanying 10% deposits will be due to EDA. Those applications will go through an eligibility and legal review. If the total amount of tax credits requested is over the amount that's available and the auction's oversubscribed, we will go back to bidders and ask for best and final offers, which gives bidders a chance to raise their offer price to be competitive in the field of bidders. If we go through that process and receive those offers, or if we just if it's not oversubscribed and we get the original offers, we rank those bids from high to low, and we'll go into cases where bids may be prorated. That would only happen if the auction is oversubscribed. Once the award amounts are set, the agreements are sent to those successful bidders. Those agreements, which again, a sample template is available online, those agreements have to be signed and returned within 10 days. And then after executing the agreement, the remaining bid funds, so the bid amount minus the 10% deposit, will be due within 30 days after executing that agreement. Then the tax credit certificates are issued by New Jersey Treasury, and from there, we take the funds and put them into these grant and loan programs to support food desert communities across the state. We have a question in the Q&A already. This is the first time we are offering this program. So we really are interested to see sort of what the interest is from the market. EDA has had a similar program in the past, the Innovation Evergreen Fund tax credit auction. This program is similar in that it's a tax credit auction, but the requirements and the ongoing commitment are really different in this program. That program was oversubscribed. All right, determining the tax credit award amounts. So if the auction is undersubscribed, it's very straightforward. Everyone who's an eligible bidder gets exactly what they bid for. If we are in a situation where the total bids are greater than the amount that's available, it gets a little bit more complicated. So we'll walk through an example of what that would look like. In this example, there's 10 million available, and we get 6 bids from bidders A through F for a total of $15,000 or $15 million in face value of tax credits requested. You'll see these are ranked from high to low by offer price. And with the 10 million that we have available to allocate, that basically gets allocated first to the highest bidders, and then going down from there until we've allocated all the tax credits. So at 95 cents, we have 4 million requested. So that bid is filled. And then at 93 cents, we have a total of another 4 million requested. Those bids are filled. So we've basically allocated 8 of the 10 million and have 2 million left. At 90 cents, we have another 4 million in requests. We aren't able to fulfill those bids in full, so those bids are prorated. And then 90 cents is the clearing price, which is the lowest price where these tax credits are awarded, at least partially. And then bids below the clearing price will be declined. As I said, the bids above the clearing price get awarded in full. And at the clearing price, these 2 bids for face value of 3 million and 1 million, the amount awarded would be prorated in half, because the 2 million available is half of the 4 million requested. So bidder D would receive 1.5 million again and pay 90% of that, and bidder E would receive 500,000 and pay 90% of that. All right, now we will walk through the application, and I will pass it back to Brian to do the first part of that.
Sure, thank you, Riley. And Also, just a reminder, the sample application is available on the website as well, so you can look through it. We'll walk through page by page. And obviously, this is the welcome page, giving you the option to choose languages, and you can also click through to the sample application on the website. What I suggest you do is, as soon as you come to this page, hit the save button so you can save the file. So as you continue to move along and hit save and move forward, you'll be able to come back to the application in case there's information you need to receive. We now have the primary point of contact. So whoever is filling out the application, we would like this information. Please be aware, if the person filling out the application is not the CEO or someone in authority, that there is a portion of the application you will have to fill out as well. So this is pretty straightforward: name, address, information. Again, if you select no to the, is this person the legally authorized person to submit for the applicant? If you select no, you will be jumped to that CEO page to give that information, and then moving on from there. Next slide. This is the authorized representative page, so you would fill this out if that is so required. Very basic information. At the end, you will see, would you like to receive the CEO to receive information? Please fill in that email and information there so that they would be able to do that. And then again, if you're clicking save, please click save or move on to the next. If you are if you're a consultant doing it in that fashion and want to include this information, you click yes here and fill in the fields. Selecting no, you will not see the rest of the section, and it will bring you on to the next page. This is the legal counsel, should you like to designate one. Again, similarly, if you select no, you'll go to the next page, but it's basic information about your legal counsel. Are they registered a government affairs agent, what their registration number is, and so forth, and then their name and address. Next slide. And then again, if you have a media contact you'd like to designate, if you click no, this page will not appear. Clicking yes, you'll be filling in all the media contact information. Then we'll get to the more of the meat of the application, the applicant organization. What is your name? Please make sure that the name you enter matches the documents you're going to be required to submit. If you're doing business as another name, please include that. The entity type, whether there's a number of options here, from limited liability companies to corporations and so forth. The date the business was established, where you're located, where your country of formation was and state of formation, and then you'll be required to submit certain documents based on your entity type that are listed here. If you click on those links, it will give you more information about those documents. Once you have those documents, you will be able to drag or just click the upload button to upload those to the site. Next slide. Continuing on, you'll need your federal ID number, your state tax ID number, clearly your phone number, applicant's organization website, and then a description of what your business is. Your NAICS number, which, if you do not know what that is, there's a link below to the U.S. Census Bureau database that will allow you to enter that information to choose which one you are. You'll also be required to upload a tax clearance certificate from the New Jersey the New Jersey Division of Taxation. You can drag that here. Again, at the bottom here is a link. If you do not know how to get that, if you click on that, it will give you the instructions to do that. If you are involved in religious activities, you can select no. You could select yes there, and there'll be a form that comes up. If you select no, that will hide the fields below. And then if you have received any NJEDA assistance before, please include that below. And again, if you hit no there, you'll just move on to the next section, which is the next page. And if you are in the cannabis business, whether you're licensed, seeking a license or have a license, or are using a property for that purpose, you would not be eligible for the program. So for most people, I'm sure you will be able to click no for this one moving forward, which will allow you to continue the application. Next slide. And this is for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we ask that you fill in these fields, whether it's you're a minority organization or prefer not to answer, or none of the above, the majority owner's race, the ethnicity group that you may be part of. You will have to make one of these selections, and if it's none of the above or prefer not to answer. Next slide. And then also if you are, what other certifications you might have with the state of New Jersey, and then any additional information you wish to describe about your organization. For all of these fields, again, entry is required unless NA options are chosen. And next slide. Yeah, we're looking at whether you have would like any information about actions your organization has taken in this front, include that, or prefer not to answer. You can upload any documents that you feel are pertinent. If you need any language assistance, that will be provided. If English is your primary, you do that. If you select yes, it'll hide the next fields. And if you do need an interpreter, please provide that information. Next slide. And now I will turn it back to Riley, who has become our tax credit, food desert tax credit auction expert for today.
Thank you, Brian. So this sort of back half of the application is where we really get into the program specific questions. Those previous sections are really all questions that are required in every EDA application. It's data that we collect about all of our applicants so that we've got all the contact information and so forth that we need. And then this is where we get into the questions that are really only unique to this auction. This page is where the bid is entered. You will first select which tax credit you are looking for a tax credit, or which tax you're looking for a tax credit against, whether that's corporate business tax or insurance premiums tax. Each application can only include one type of tax in this question. So if you are an entity that maybe has subsidiaries that have both types of tax liability, you would want to either submit separate applications under the names of each of those entities, because the tax credit certificate can only be issued in the name of the named applicant on the application, or there are provisions to do a transfer of the tax credits from one entity to another after the auction, but that process comes with some more requirements as well as a fee. Then just a confirmation that the organization has liability for that tax. And then the second half of this page is listing your filing period. The example here is a calendar year filer. Then the face value of your tax credit request and your bid price. The minimum bid price is 85 cents or 85%. And the minimum face value requested is 500,000. So in this example, the request is just over 5 million and the bid price is that minimum of 85 cents on the dollar. The total bid will be calculated here. So here it's 4.25 million and 85 cents. Then there's a checkbox to confirm commitment to this bid. And we've included a little bit of information here about transferring the credits. All right, this page on development subsidies. Again, this is required data that we, by law, have to collect from everyone who's seeking assistance from the authority, whether that's purchasing a tax credit or getting a grant or a loan. This isn't a part of the eligibility review, but it is required that we collect this information. So there is a long definition of what makes up a development subsidy, and I'll show that in a second, just so that you folks have a better sense of what's included there and what's not. But then for each one, if you have received or are currently requesting any other development subsidies, you would put the name of the government body or municipality that is granting that development subsidy, whether you've already received it or it's something that you are currently applying for and anticipate receiving, the date that you either received or expect to receive it, the value, and a description of that subsidy. And then you can add additional subsidies and the total value will be summed up here. So this is the definition from this law, Public Law 2007, Chapter 200, of what a development subsidy is. The core is really in this first sentence. It's providing to a recipient corporation an amount of funds by or from a public body with the value of not less than $25,000 for the purpose of stimulating economic development in New Jersey. And this can take the form of a bond, grant, loan guarantee, matching fund, or tax expenditure, which is where this falls in. There are some, the rest of this description goes into things that don't count as development subsidies when companies contracting with the government to provide goods or services or do construction, or when there are projects that are focused exclusively on developing affordable housing or environmental projects. And again, when there are funds going from a public body to a nonprofit for recreational, educational, arts, cultural, childcare, or healthcare programming. So after the development subsidies page, there's a page here that sort of connects back to that question or that page that Brian highlighted earlier about whether the person submitting the application is legally authorized to, or person filling out the application is legally authorized to submit on behalf of the applicant. This is a bit more specific than that because there are some certifications that need to be included that have to be filled out by someone in one of these categories. So you would just, whoever's filling this out would answer, whether or not they're employed by the applicant. It may be a consultant filling out the application, and then they would answer no. But if it is an employee, then they would say whether they fit in one of those categories, and if so, which one. And then that just depends whether, from there, whether you're directed to fill out these certifications in the application portal itself, if the person filling out the application has the legal authority to do so, or there will be PDF forms that can be downloaded from the application portal, and the authorized representative needs to fill those out and sign them and upload them from there. The information is, and the questions asked are all the same, whether it's in the application portal or in a PDF. And the first one of those certifications is this legal questionnaire, which is required of all applicants for EDA programs. It goes through some pretty specific categories of cases and legal proceedings that either the applicant is currently facing or has faced, and there's a lot of detail in here about sort of what the scope is of what needs to be included here. Documentation for any is required for any questions where the answer is yes. There's also a section that if the applicant has any entities that meet the definition of affiliates, which is included here in the beginning of this page, if there are any entities that meet that definition, then the same questions need to be answered for that entity as well. And then an electronic signature at the end of this questionnaire. The next certification is a certification of non-involvement in prohibited activities in Russia or Belarus, which is required by state law. And again, it's pretty straightforward, answering whether or not you are on this list of entities that are engaging in prohibited activities, whether you can certify that you're not on the list, and then a signature at the end. And then almost at the very end here, there are sort of 2 more pages of certifications. This first one is standard to all EDA applications for assistance, including things like confirming understanding that if information in the application is false, there may be consequences for that, or certifying that the applicant is not in default with other state programs. I just saw a question pop up. Can you work on the application, save it, and then go back at a later time and complete the next section? Yes, absolutely. We do not expect you to do all of this in one marathon. probably need to gather information from multiple people. You are absolutely able to hit save at the bottom right of any page. The first time you hit save, you will get an email with a link to your application so you can go back to it as needed to continue to edit pages that you've already filled out. You can jump back and forth through the application once you've filled out a page by clicking back to the number of that page. After this first certifications page, there's a second one that's specific to this program, just with the acknowledgement that the tax credit bid is binding for 120 days following submission of the application, and that if the auction is oversubscribed, we may be seeking best and final offers after the application itself closes. After all of those certifications, we've got a page here that talks about the required deposit. Again, this is 10% deposit not to exceed 500,000. And the deposit's applied to the final amount paid. If the bid is declined, the deposit is refunded. We are asking that the deposit has to be initiated, and we need to receive documentation of that the deposit's been initiated by 5 p.m. on the date the application closes, which, as you can see, is not set yet. Basically, we want to make sure that the funds are on their way and have confirmation of that by the time the application closes. But that means if the funds take an extra day or two to actually get to EDA, there's no concern about making sure that they arrive by the deadline, just that they are sent by the deadline. We've got wire instructions here. You will have an application ID once you've saved your application, and that'll show up there, which you will need to include as in the reference on the wire. This will calculate the deposit that's required based on the size of your bid, 10% of the size of your bid, up to 500,000, and then an acknowledgement of this requirement to initiate the deposit before the deadline. And then if the applicant has already initiated payment by the time they are, or before they have finished and submitted this application, there is an opportunity to select yes here and upload that documentation. If the applicant is planning to submit the application and then initiate the deposit, then the documentation will just need to be sent to this email address and isn't required at the time of application, just before that deadline. Lastly, there is an electronic signature page, very straightforward, and then this confirmation of this final page before you submit, and you would put in a name and date and hit submit here. Once that's done, this is the confirmation that you will receive. And application status communications will go to the email address that you entered. You can always reach out to our team at this email address. And we know that this is, while this is simpler and more streamlined than many EDA programs, this is still, a lot of things to fill out. So if there are clarifying questions as you look through the sample application, please send them to us so that we can, get things clarified before the application itself opens. Another thing I will note, we will have an FAQ up on that auction website within the next couple of weeks. If we do get specific questions from individual bidders, we will share an answer with them, but also post and that question and an answer on the FAQ so that everyone has the same information about how the program works. Another thing I should note real quick, if any of the questions or comments that we get during this period before the application opens lead to us needing to make revisions to any of the documents, the application, the agreement, the description of the auction process, we will make those changes and post them in advance, post the new documents in advance of the application opening. So again, there's a chance to take a look at the requirements before having to start the process of applying. And now we are at Q&A.
And it looks like we've got Tim Rowe, who is on there. I've given you permission to talk, but yep, you're unmuted. Go for it, Tim. You can tell us where you're from as well.
From Mount Laurel, New Jersey, J&J Snack Foods. Our company has a lot of, I guess, affiliated companies or subsidiaries. Is this good for, like, you file for the main company, and then all subsidiaries are under that blanket?
Thanks for your question. That's a great question. I can answer that in part, but at EDA, we aren't able to give tax advice. So I would look into this further with your tax professionals and reach out to taxation for sort of final clarification. But the main point to know is that the tax credit certificate is issued in the name of the named applicant. So whichever company is listed in the application is the only one that will be able to apply that tax credit certificate directly to their return without going through a transfer. And where there may be implications around unitary filing, and that's sort of outside of the scope of what we can answer, and you would need to ask the real experts on taxes for that.
Okay, and I guess just on another question, how quickly is the payment due after a successful bid?
So it's a little bit difficult to predict how quickly exactly the review process will take, just because especially the legal review sometimes takes longer when applicants have more complex situations. But we plan to accept bids or close the application in Q3 of this year, and be able to issue the agreements to successful bidders in Q4. And depending on when that agreement is issued, the funds are due 30 days after that.
Okay, thank you very much.
If there are anybody, that's it. It looks like for right now for live questions, although folks are free to raise their hand at any point in time. It looks like there are a couple in the written. So
yes, I'm taking a look at those.
Okay.
We've got a question again from Tim about whether applications are open public records. I'm not an expert on OPRA rules, so I will get back to you on that. I just want to make sure that I give an accurate answer there. So we'll make sure that that's part of our FAQ. And then we have another question about the expected length of time between the deposit and when the tax credit is issued by the state. That is something we're looking to sort of firm up the timeline in the coming weeks, but we would expect it to be in the range of months. On the early side, the 10% deposit could be due in September and the credit issued in January, or the 10% deposit could be due middle of October and the credit issued in January or February. All right. We've got another question. If we successfully win a bid, can the credit be sold again to a third party, or does it have to be used by the purchaser? These tax credits are able to be transferred. There are specific provisions governing that transfer. For one thing, the minimum amount that can be transferred is $25,000 at a minimum price of 85 cents for every dollar of the value of the tax credit, same as the auction. Also, the tax credits can only be transferred once. Also, once they are applied to a return, they can no longer be transferred. All right, if a bid is accepted, can you decide not to pursue the credit at any time before the signed agreement without penalty? You get the deposit back. I am gonna have to consult our board memo to be totally clear on what the cutoff is for receiving your deposit back. But there is a window of time where you are able to back out and receive the deposit. We're certainly hoping that that's not the case. We want this program to be something that bidders can commit to, but we understand things come up. If in sort of a worst case scenario, you had signed the agreement and then not fulfilled the rest of the payment, the deposit would not be refunded and the applicant wouldn't be able to take part in a tax credit auction for the next year. Let's give it another couple moments in case more questions come in on the Q&A, because folks are typing them pretty fast. And if you want to refer to more of our resources, we have, again, the sample application, sample of that tax credit purchase agreement on the website, as well as a detailed description of the auction process. You can reach out to us via email. These slides will be up later today, and the recording of the webinar will be up early next week. Again, this slide has the web address for that page, as well as our email address. We have another question. Where can more information be found about transferring credits? So the best place to look for that would be both in the board memo, which is on the website, as well as in the Food Desert Relief Act, because there are some statutory provisions around transfer that would apply to these tax credits as well.
And when is the FAQ? Do you expect to be able to put up the FAQ?
The FAQ should be up in the next 2 weeks. Okay. And we will continue to update that throughout the period until the application opens, so that folks have up-to-date information as more questions and clarifications come in.
Wonderful.
All right, this being an auction, I think we'll do a going once, going twice. No more questions. Thank you all for attending. Please do reach out with any questions that come up. Looking forward to your participation in this program, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you.